I'm super geeked about the car. I've been on the list for a long time for the ZR1, hoping to get it. I was hoping to get an early one, didn't happen. 25's done. We're heading into 26, and I'm just hoping to get one. I will take the rear wheel drive. I don't care. Just to have the ZR1
Right.
and add it to the collection, I think it would be awesome.
Hey, what's up, everybody? Welcome back to Two Car Guys, to another episode of Two Car Guys with John and Adam, where we're talking about all the topics that are going on this week.
Ooh, that's a good bit of them, man.
There are. So, John, let's start with something that's near and dear to your heart.
Ooh, all right. So I know
Let's
I'm
start
wearing a
with Chevy
McLaren
news.
t-shirt. Yeah.
Well, no, let's start with Chevy news. We'll get to McLaren in a minute. Let's start with Chevy news.
All right. So Chevrolet drops the bomb with the new ZR1X.
Okay, so let's get into this. I think everybody thought it was going to be the Zora, and for those of you who don't know the history of why they thought it was going to be called the Zora, it's actually a really cool history. It's about really the guy behind Corvette as a whole, and his whole life he'd been trying to put a mid-engine in a Corvette, to the point where like Chevy took him off of the Corvette project and put him on minivans and school buses for a hot minute.
Yeah,
so
man.
He didn't even get to see the mid-engine Corvette in his lifetime, but this ZR1 is kind of a culmination of his vision, basically, right?
Yes. I mean, Zora Dunkus, basically, I think that's how you say his name. Zora Dunkus and it's a German name, I think.
It's Russian, actually.
Obviously, I'm not great with the names.
Yeah.
Russian, that's what it was.
Yep.
So he was the guy that wanted to stuff the mid-engine in platform together, and Chevrolet did a big nod to him with the original C8 when it came out, and they put his face all over everything and like little Easter eggs.
Yeah,
it's super cool. You go into the car, you're like working on it or just checking it out or whatever. It's on the lift, and you look underneath it, and there's his face on the bottom of a panel, and you're like, it's so random that they would put this guy here, but great history with Chevrolet, and him and his wife both were very dedicated to the Corvette team, everything. And in the 60s and 70s they wanted to do this mid-engine deal, and now it's here. Now it's big, and they wanted, everybody in the world of that platform is like, hey, they need to do a big nod, and they need to basically make a car that commemorates him, and it's got to be the most powerful, most crazy. I guess Chevrolet's saying that we're not there yet.
No. Okay. So let's talk about the good things about this announcement. Let's talk about the good things from Chevrolet, right? So the ZR1 was announced. I saw it in person at what was it? The Barrett-Jackson Auto Auction, right? Yeah. That was actually VIN number 01 that got auctioned off to charity. And that was a really cool car. I will tell you, it's much more aggressive in person than a regular C8, which is cool. Right. I don't care for the wing on that car. I really don't. It's like too ostentatious. It almost looks like when tuners go and throw big wings on the back of their like Honda Civics, and you're like, dude. But overall,
can you really have too much wing?
I mean, you can on a front-wheel drive car. Overall, I thought it was a great-looking car, and I know you're a huge Corvette fan, right?
Yes.
But the horsepower on the ZR1 is ridiculous. It is so cool.
I mean, they took the Z06 and then they doubled the horsepower, doubled the torque.
Mm-hmm.
Then they said, okay, well, we're not done yet. We're going to add the E-Ray motor to it with more power than what comes on the E-Ray.
Right.
And now that not only have they done that, they have not released a torque number, which I can only imagine is just unreal or very similar. So it's one of the two. We don't know yet. I'm super geeked about the car. I've been on the list for a long time for the ZR1, hoping to get it. I was hoping to get an early one, didn't happen. 25's done. We're heading into 26, and I'm just hoping to get one. I will take the rear wheel drive. I don't care. Just to have the ZR1 and add it to the collection, I think it would be awesome. Financially, I don't know that my bank account will ever recover if I buy this car. It's probably, committing suicide. I mean, you're throwing $200,000 at a car that
financial suicide.
Yeah, financial suicide. So
yeah,
Yeah.
Okay. So the ZR1 is super, super cool. Today, or when we're filming this episode, they just announced the ZR1X, which we all thought was going to be the Zora.
Yes.
I will say, okay, so now we're in, hypercar horsepower and hypercar numbers. They're talking about sub 2 second 0 to 60. And it's all thanks to having basically a hybrid between the ZR1 and an E-Ray stuff together, because you're getting electrical assist and all-wheel drive and all these crazy things, right?
It's unreal, man. And some of the cars they're comparing this to are what's crazy. They're saying, all right, the ZR1's cool. They compared it to like the GT3 RS. I think they compared it to a lot of cars like that, but it was way more horsepower. So, and they understated it from the factory according to people that have driven the car and know the car and tested the car. But then they come out with the ZR1X within 6 months of releasing the ZR1, which to me is just suicide for the car. Anybody that's buying the ZR1 thinks they're getting the hottest specialist thing. They only released 300 of them. They only made 300 for 25.
Right.
Either they're doing a really low number on these cars and they're like, we want to get all of them out and start the C9, or they're going to mass produce them like crazy.
Yeah.
And
so let's get into that aspect of it, right? So we saw some YouTubers that got a chance to get in the ZR1 and take it around COTA. And they all had really, really positive things to say. That's great. But here's the truth, right? I don't know what on earth Chevrolet is thinking when the people who have allocations out there haven't even gotten their orders yet.
Yeah.
And you announce the successor to this car that's even more horsepower. And we're already hearing that the resale, or the projected resale price, right, on those ZR1s is already taking a bath.
Yeah.
Which I don't doubt it. Now I will say when the ZR1E X rather, when the E-Ray came out, right? Everybody was like, why did the E-Ray come out right on the back of the ZR1? Because it's supposed to have all-wheel drive and have the electric assist, but nobody bought the E-Ray. Like there are very few E-Rays even out there,
Yeah. It came out right on the back of the Z06, and it was very, very.
That's why I meant Z06.
Misunderstanding. It was like, why, right now, and then they said, it's two different markets, blah blah blah, all that. Okay, cool, got it. But then and what it is like they're coming out with the newest, greatest, and they're doing it faster and faster.
They're doing it too fast, though. That's the issue, right?
Is they're not reading that book from McLaren, because McLaren was bad about that and killing resale values of everybody's car that bought it. And if you become loyal to a brand, which I like the Corvette, I think it's great value. I think it's an awesome car. But at this price point, when you're hitting the 200 grand mark, there are so many other cars I could buy.
So many.
And it's so hard to stay that path and be like, I know it's the best performance for the money and all that stuff, but it's hard to stay that path, because I know that if I buy the ZR1 and get a new one, and even if I pay MSRP, I'm probably shooting myself in the foot financially.
You are probably shooting yourself in the foot for multiple reasons. One, because the resale is probably going to suck. I mean, that's what everybody's saying, right?
Right. But when they release the Zora, to get that Zora allocation, I got a feeling you're going to have bought all these other allocations up to it. Probably. Just like any other brand.
I mean, maybe not, right? And so here's the other thing, right? So I'm about to put on my skeptic hat for a minute, and kind of my angry car guy hat, if you will. I don't have one sitting here. No, that's not my
skeptic hat is on.
My angry car guy hat is basically, I love where Chevrolet's mind is from a standpoint of, we can top this, right? So you had the C8, which was a game changer, right? It was starting to blur the lines between muscle car and supercar, and it was getting into a market that they previously weren't in, right?
Yeah.
Then you had the Z06, which was supercar horsepower and supercar performance, and it made that line, I mean, not even really blurry. It was kind of in the background. And now you've got ZR1 and the ZR1X, right? And it's really kind of changing the game. It seems like it's happening too fast. And because of the fact that they're going to be mass produced, that's what loses me, right? That's what loses me in many of these cars. But here's where I'm angry. I'm not angry at Chevrolet. I'm angry at the car market in general, because I feel like it's the timing's off. Because if you remember, just a few years ago, Dodge was on this kick where they're like, oh, we got 700 horsepower. We're going to do a red eye. We're going to take it one step further. We're going to do a jailbreak. Oh, we're going to do a Demon. Oh, we're going to do a 170 Demon, right?
Yeah.
And it was out of control. And the thing was, it was super cool, but they had no real competition in the space.
Yeah.
Now Chevrolet's doing that, and Dodge is off doing their own thing. They have no real competition in the space.
Yeah.
I miss when we used to have manufacturer horsepower wars.
Yes.
Right? And Ford
you had
and
the big
Dodge.
three. You know, you had the big three.
Yes.
All of them fighting for that position. You know, it was Dodge was bringing out the Magnum, and then the Hemi, and then all this, and then Mustang was coming up with the Boss and the 302 and all that. And
Ford
then,
and Dodge played in that sandbox for a while, and they were like, okay, I see your 700, I'll do this. And I think I've told you a story before, but I went to Barrett Jackson a few years ago when they first released the T-Rex.
Right.
And we were sitting in the line to do the van rides or demo rides or whatever you want to call it. And they weren't talking about the horsepower on the T-Rex.
Right.
They were talking about everything about a Raptor, and they were like, "Oh, our car has 14 inches of travel in the rear, and the Raptor has 13.5, and our car has 10 cup holders, and they have 9 cup holders." And it was some of the most petty crap, but I was laughing because I was like, yes, I need this. Like, I need them to be fighting tooth and nail against each other.
Absolutely.
And I'm angry because Chevrolet has introduced this freaking weapon on wheels.
Love it.
And who's going to step up, right? The only thing that's in the horizon right now is the GTD. And the GTD is a track weapon. Like, if you've seen some of the stuff that's coming out about the Black Widow version of that on the Nürburgring, that thing's a track weapon. And that is more in line with the GT3s of the world, right? Yeah. But I will tell you, pound for pound, the Chevy's going to freaking murder it, right? They need to go back. We haven't even seen a GTD yet. They need to bring out a 1,300 horsepower GTD and just drop the mic on everybody.
You got to think that Ford is standing there and they're like, ooh, let's see. They've got that. Okay. All right. And they did this. All right. Okay, cool. That's great. We're going to come out with a mid-engine something.
Right.
We're going to call it the Ford GT for the masses, and we're going to price it under the Corvette. Then I'll buy Ford. So that variant, So
here's the funny thing, right? And well, we're kind of going to have to transition away from Chevrolet so we don't make this whole episode about the Corvette.
Oh, come on, man.
But the good news is I think Chevrolet has kind of tipped off the scales a little bit, because we're already hearing rumors about 1,000 horsepower R9 coming out from Audi. We're already hearing rumors about a possible Nissan Silvia hitting the market. We're already hearing rumors about a mid-engine in other brands. And I know there's a lot of renderings out there that say that, Mustang's going to have a mid-engine Mustang. And I'm for it. I'm here for it. But I don't think that's going to happen.
And even then, I think some cars should stay traditional, like the Viper. I don't know that it could ever be mid-engine, right?
And be the same had this conversation on the last episode. I do not want to see a mid-engine Viper. I want to see a rebirth of the Viper.
Yes. Bring it back. Bring it back as a V10 manual car, and I'm in. Let's go.
Bring it back as a V10 manual car, supercharged, and give it 1,000 horsepower
or more.
More.
Yeah, I mean, you got to remember, it was meant to compete with the ZR1. It never really competed in like the Z06 space.
Yeah.
So now that Chevrolet's kind of unveiled their craziness, now it's time for Dodge to be like, well, we can do better. Yeah. Maybe.
So I will say we had this like weird time where everybody was talking about getting away from ICE engines and moving toward fully electric, and everybody was talking about having fully electrics in their fleet. California was talking about getting rid of combustion engines by like 2030, which is around the corner, people. And thank goodness that whole thing is gone.
Yes.
But everybody thought that electric engines were kind of like the silver bullet, and because of that, we started to see brands that were traditionally, high horsepower and ridiculous numbers and stuff like that going away from it. And I think in the recent few years, couple of years even, and more so the last few months, we've seen people not just say, no, that's not our path forward. We need to get back to what we're good at.
Yeah.
But the head of Toyota came out and said, for every, I forget how many it was like 27,000 fully electric vehicles you make, right? Or 27,000 hybrids we make is equal to the emissions from 27 million. There we go. 27 million electric vehicles. It's equal to 9 million fully electric vehicles. So 27 hybrids, 9 million fully electrics. What they're saying is it's a 3-to-1 ratio that suggests that EVs aren't the silver bullet that everybody thought they were going to be.
Well, that, and that we don't know the long term, right?
No, we don't.
And that's the big question mark. I think everybody's like, okay, lithium's not great for the environment.
Right.
So how does this go in 15 years? I guess we'll see, because there's enough on the road now that we're going to have an impact in some way, shape, or form. So, I'm proud of him to come out and say that.
I am too, but
2 years ago, he wouldn't have done it.
No, he wouldn't have. And he probably would have been scared to do it a few years ago because there was so much pressure in the industry to go fully electric. And Toyota, Lexus was one of the last people to even introduce a fully electric vehicle.
Correct.
Honda came out a while ago and was talking about converting all of their ICE engines, in fact, converting older cars to electric engines. And what's really interesting is I saw a study that said one electric car battery uses so much carbon that 10 years of running, it's basically equivalent to 10 years of running one gas car, right?
Yeah.
And that, really the only clean energy that we can think of is hydrogen. And people have been working to tap that hydrogen thing for a minute,
right?
But in the meantime, I think that people were, I don't want to say scared, but I feel like there was a lot of government pressure and environmental pressure to look at electric. And, Tesla kind of opened the door and it gave people the option. I feel like a lot of people were like, oh, well, this is how we have to go. And they didn't really put in all the research. And now we're in a point where everybody's like, I don't think this is the silver bullet we all think it is. Let's get back to doing what works. And I just took a trip over the weekend. I drove all the way out to where I was going and all the way back. It didn't have to fill up one time. And then when I did fill up, when I got home, it took 5 seconds, 10 seconds. Right.
Yeah.
And the thing is, I've told stories on here before about renting all EV cars, and that range anxiety is a real thing.
So I was on my way back from Cleveland and flew into I was leaving Cleveland, flying into Atlanta, and I went to the Hertz rental car and dropped off my rental car. It was like a Honda Accord or whatever. And as we're pulling out, I asked the guy, I said, "Hey man, what all, did y'all get hurt real bad with the Tesla thing?" And he's like, "Oh dude, let me tell you, we have one Tesla in our fleet here and I cannot rent it." He's like, "It's just here." He's like, "It's an option if somebody wants it, but nobody wants it." Yeah. I was like, "That's crazy, man." And he was like, "Yeah," he said, "and 2 years ago we had 50. That's a big drastic change.
Yeah.
From that kind of push to zero, almost zero.
Yep. And I shared a story with you earlier, and we're not gonna dive too much into it because I want to make sure that it's credible before we start spouting off at the mouth, right? But but
hit me in the comments.
There have been stories that we've heard, personally from people who've had struggles with, Tesla specifically about getting cars repaired and about getting things done, and Tesla kind of calling their own shots, But the thing is, I know plenty of people who have a Tesla who it works perfectly for their life. It does everything they want it to do. Yeah. It's basically they plug it in at night, they unplug it when they go somewhere, they drive locally, and they love it, right? And you got hardly any maintenance on the sucker,
Yeah, and I'll be honest, man, I've looked at getting a Model 3. Like it doesn't even have to be the long range, just to have as a daily and another option around town, because I live 10 minutes from work. I can plug it in at night. I can drive it to work. It's there all day. It's not, I don't care if it's out in the parking lot all day, like some of the other cars. But like when I look at road trips we've got to make, and I'm like, I can't have $18,000 tied up in a Tesla when I can pay $5,000 for a 4 Series and drive that bad boy back and forth to wherever, and it gets me there, and it's just as economic. The only thing it would save me on is gas day to day.
Yeah,
and so I don't know, man. And I'm looking for a daily. I'm trying to find a good daily because my truck drinks gas. Jessica's new truck drinks gas. And I'm like, hey, let's get a good daily or a trip car so that when we come to like Atlanta and stuff like that, we're not bringing the big gas guzzlers up or any of that, and just being a little more efficient and not caring if it gets rock chips. But
so I will say, and for those of you who've been following the channel and watching some of our stuff outside of our podcast,
yes,
we did a lot of work to the truck, to the project truck, the Project Raptor. We did intercooler, intake, a tune. We did exhaust, and I am happy to report that truck is getting the best gas mileage it's ever gotten. I was averaging.
What are you averaging in that thing?
Over 20 miles a gallon on the highway. Yeah.
We got to open up the Raptor because it's getting like 14.
Yeah.
Period.
Well, so
that's combined. So maybe it's a little better. But
part of that though is you loving that car right now and putting your foot on the gas every time you get in it. That's part of it.
Look, I got in it today and I was like, ooh, sport mode.
Yes, that's part of it.
And every down gear is like rev matching, I'm like, if it had an intake, it'd be so much better.
Yes. Well, that is coming soon to the channel.
Coming soon to the channel, yes. Yep. I've got to finish up my video for everybody to see this thing. You're going to love it. That video will be coming soon. It's rained every day here.
It has rained. I will say really quickly before we move on to our next topic. I got home in time for one of the heaviest rainstorms I've ever seen back here at the house, followed by literally a lightning bolt that my neighbor said it looked like it hit the house.
Oh my gosh!
And it sounded like it hit the house.
Oh.
And it kind of flicked everything in the house so that the HomePods came on, started playing music, which was super eerie.
That is weird.
Yeah, right after it happened, it was real bad.
That is a sketch.
Yeah. So in his defense, it has been raining like crazy.
Unreal, man.
We'll get those videos out here soon.
Yes.
But a lot more to come. So
absolutely.
The last topic of the day is what John is wearing today, which is the McLaren Formula One team and the Formula One race in Canada.
Oh my goodness.
I know those of you who are watching our shorts have seen some of the stuff that's out there.
Yes.
We got some great content, courtesy of a friend of mine who was at Canada and was kind of our man in the field, if you will, our guy in the field. Yeah. And honestly, he said that's one that we should add to the list. He had a great time.
Canada.
Everything looked really good.
Absolutely.
Montreal is a beautiful city. If you haven't been there before, it's a very, very beautiful city with a lot to do.
Yeah.
And he said that the one takeaway he had was he got a shuttle service that took him to and from the track. And he said it took them 20 minutes, took everybody else like an hour to get there. So the shuttle service is the way to go.
The move. Okay.
Yep.
Got it.
So let's get into it, right? So getting into the race, I think everybody was focused on Max Verstappen and having 1 point on his license to get a race ban.
Yes.
Right. And I don't know, man. I mean, McLaren looked sloppy going into qualifying.
Yes.
Right. Even Oscar didn't look great going into qualifying.
No.
It was just weird. And here's the thing. Why haven't we been talking about George Russell?
So
he's been consistent all year.
Not only consistent, but Mr. Consistency has also been like under the radar, like under
the radar.
And he's just, kind of stacking his points along the way. And Antonelli's not far behind him. The Mercedes are they're floating back there. They're just waiting to strike, man. I think it's kind of
go back. Look at our previous podcast. Somebody said that they were an Antonelli fan.
Yes.
And that they thought Antonelli was going to be rookie of the year. That dude, I'm a huge Antonelli fan.
Anybody could have called that though. I mean, he's in the Mercedes. The
Behrman.
Mercedes not going to suck. Like they're going to be okay. And maybe all the other rookies are kind of like, I mean, I got a car.
Yeah, maybe. I don't know. Bortoletto is looking okay, but no, so that whole thing was crazy.
Yeah.
The grid lineup for Sunday was already like drama, right?
Yeah.
We were like, okay, this is gonna be crazy. And I think you and I even talked about it. I was like, dude, Max is gonna go down the inside and he's gonna take the lead in the beginning of the race, and it's gonna be game, right?
Yes.
Didn't happen.
It didn't happen. No, everybody was worried about turn one. They were like focused on turn one. And then it was like turn one happened. And I'm like, oh, everybody got out smooth. That's cool.
Everybody got out smooth. and who got out in front?
Yeah.
And here's the other thing.
Yeah. Piastri.
I don't think Piastri was ready for what happened.
No. Oh, well, where are we at in the race right now?
In the beginning.
Oh, yeah.
In the beginning.
No,
so in turn one.
Yeah. No, I don't either. Yeah.
In turn one, he was like, oh, I don't want to crash. I'll get off. And all of a sudden, he's now lost a place.
Yes. And I think strategy played a big part in this race, too. Like, if you look at it and dig into what they did.
It did. So strategy was kind of weird. It was actually very weird. We saw a lot of people that were trying to go for a one stop. We saw some people that were trying to go for a two stop, right? When Max pitted so early in the race,
yeah, that was scary.
I literally was like, I don't know if he's even going to finish on the podium.
Well, he said the tires are just not cutting on. Like
he said they were falling off. They were falling off like crazy. Yeah.
And I think he was seeing that there was wear in the tires or something. It was crazy.
Dude, we could see it on Lando's tires. He was coming around. You could see that strip on the middle of the tires.
Grow out. Yeah.
Meanwhile, Crofty's over here going, oh, he might be able to drive through that. If he drives through that, it's going to be all right. And I was like, all right, drive through it, man. Make it happen.
2 minutes later, pit stop.
Yeah. But I mean, that whole thing was crazy. And, I think there was a lot of weird stuff that happened like during the race.
Oh, yeah.
But,
RIP to the groundhog.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
Oh my God. So what was really weird about that was they said that Hamilton had damage.
Yeah.
And it happened in like turn 8 or something like that.
Right. Yeah.
And they're like, Hamilton has damage, and no one could figure out. They were going back and looking at videos, and they couldn't figure out where he like touched somebody or where he crashed with somebody
or what happened. Yeah. If he ran over something. Yeah.
Then we find out when Fred Vasseur was talking that it was a marmot, which is a groundhog.
That's the groundhog,
right?
Yeah.
And when Hamilton found out, dude, he was like, "Oh my God!"
He
was devastated.
He's like, "I love animals and all that."
Yes,
they're little cute guys too, man. It sucks.
Yeah,
it's like
he was devastated.
Yeah.
Isn't this like the second Montreal race in a row, second Canada race in a row where somebody hit a groundhog?
Yeah,
I think they did last year too, right?
I think they're getting a little too aggressive, man. We're gonna have to do some mitigation on the groundhogs.
You would think so. If you look at, there was a video that somebody posted online yesterday where the groundhog actually came up and then went across the track safely, right?
Yeah. While the race was going on.
Well, what was going on?
Yeah.
Two things. One, you would think that the groundhog would avoid the road, but to be fair, those cars are probably shaking its home to smithereens, right? So it probably wants to get out of there.
Yeah.
But you would think that, like, as part of track preparation,
it'd be like,
they would go around and see if they have holes in the track, to plug them, to get the groundhogs out, right? Send the Caddyshack out there and get this sucker taken care of.
It's funny because like the squirrels in my neighborhood are pretty aggressive, and they do the same kind of thing. Like you're driving down the road and it's like, oh, there's a squirrel, watch out, And like one of the people in my neighborhood, I know this is a side topic, but one of the people in my neighborhood in the HOA like group or whatever made a like our mascot for the neighborhood, and it's like a squirrel with a shield, and I feel like that should be the mascot for that track.
Groundhog with a shield.
Groundhog with a shield.
I like it. Okay, so let's talk about the end, and then there's a topic I want to talk about that we're going to end on, and if I get a little ranty, I mean, I'm just preparing everybody up front.
I'm ready for your rant, sir.
Here's the deal, right? So there's a bunch of different ways to look at this, and if you read the comments on our video, you can see that there's multiple different perspectives on what happened, right? But when they put Lando onto the newer tires, he was the fastest car on track by a good bit.
Yeah, he was clicking off fastest laps.
He was clicking off fastest laps, and he was eating up time to Piastri, right?
Yes.
Now, the challenge at McLaren is you have two drivers that could potentially compete for the World Drivers' Championship.
Absolutely.
And it's been made very clear that they don't have a 1-2 driver situation there.
Yes.
And this is why these sorts of sports are very difficult, because if you have teammates that are on the same team and they are, they're getting team orders, right? You don't get that in MotoGP. You don't get that in MotoGP because you can't talk to the riders, right? And Valentino Rossi even said at one point that your biggest competition is the guy who's got the same equipment you do.
Yeah, same thing you do. Yeah.
So,
unless you're in a Red Bull.
Unless you're in a Red Bull. The fact that there's no team orders when you see this guy that is literally just clicking off fastest laps was kind of crazy, right?
Yeah.
So I think we were all kind of waiting with bated breath to hear
switch position.
Something along the lines of let Lando through, see if he can get Kimi, and if he can't get Kimi, maybe he gives the place back.
Yeah,
right.
They've done that before.
We've seen that before.
Yep.
We saw that with Lewis and Valtteri a few years ago, and then Lewis gave the place back. We saw that with Fernando and our buddy Stroll, and then Stroll didn't give the place back. No, he did not.
Right.
But ultimately, that would, to me, I feel like that was the right move, because that way you have two cars that finish, that finish,
right,
and you've got a chance to put one of your cars on the podium, right?
Correct.
They let them basically
fight it out. They were at that point where it was, that lap was a pretty good rendition of them fighting it out. And,
it was.
And I thought it was great. I love to see racing. That's racing. I love that.
It was. And Piastri late break going into the corner. Lando had to bail, right?
Yes.
And then Lando was like, screw that. I'm going to go at it this next time. And I think what he thought was going to happen, and this is my rendition, right? Again, there are many different opinions if you look at our YouTube short. But my assessment of what happened was he basically saw that he could either go to the left of him or go to the right of him. I think he thought that regardless of which way he went, that Oscar was going to give him a car's length, right? Or car's width. Okay. And when he started going toward the left, he had already committed.
Yep.
And by that time, he's like, well, I guess I got to go on the grass a little bit, And when he went on the grass, I think
it just sucked him into the wall.
Yeah, I think that he, tapped the back of Piastri's car and then went right into the wall.
Yeah.
He's lucky. McLaren is lucky that they didn't lose both cars.
Yes.
100%, right?
Yep.
And I think that was just a immature move from that team to not have been like, look, we can see one of our cars is performing, go get them, right?
Yeah.
But with that being said, and this is just how this works, right? It's tough because Lando is right behind Piastri in the championship, right? And Piastri is leading the World Drivers' Championship. The challenging thing is they did that to Lando last year, right? They did a tire strategy that put Lando out in front of Piastri, and they got on the radio and basically begged Lando to give up the spot and let Piastri win his first race, by the way, right?
Yep.
And they said that it was for the betterment of the team. Having one car that doesn't finish the race and the other car finish fourth is not for the betterment of the team. Right. But I will say, credit to Lando, because he wasn't even out of the car yet. And he's like, I'm stupid. That was
all
on
my
me.
fault. I did it. Yeah. I give him credit there. That was very grown up of him. After he made the mistake, I just wish he had thought it through before he made the mistake.
I think
that also
armchair quarterback is easy, right?
Easy. It's easy to say from the seat. Absolutely.
Exactly. These guys are doing 200 plus miles an hour into a corner.
Yeah.
And all he can think is that spot right there is difference between me winning the championship and me being second.
Yes.
Absolutely. And with nobody coming over the radio going, hey, we're gonna invert the cars or let the faster driver through so he can go get a third place, a podium. what do you do?
Yeah. And then the race ended under a yellow flag, and that was that. I mean, that's pretty much the end of the race.
Yeah, that was kind of
neutralized the race.
That was kind of disappointing.
Yep.
I will say I didn't appreciate the little cattiness between George and Max at the end, where George is like, he's like, oh, he tried to overtake me under the safety car, and Max is like, oh, he braked under the safety car.
Yeah.
Like, again, the whole reason they put in that rule where you couldn't go alongside during the restart was because of Max, because he started challenging people during the restart and having his nose out in front of people, right?
Yeah.
And so they got rid of that. They basically made it so that you can't overtake until you cross the line, and you have to start behind him, basically, right?
Correct. Yeah.
So he was already out of position anyway. He should have been behind Russell. He knew that they were not going to get a racing lap, right?
Yeah.
So what's the point? He knew they weren't going to get a racing lap. But here's where my rant starts, and this is where we're going to end the video.
Maybe.
Last race, not Canada, the one before in Spain.
Okay.
Lance Stroll was out. He was out because his hands were, or his wrists or whatever were in such a state after his, he had that bicycle accident last year.
Yeah.
And he had surgery on both his wrists. I thought he came back way too fast, honestly.
Incredibly quick. Like, I was actually kind of impressed. I was like, dang, he really wants to drive and all this stuff.
I'm not impressed by that. I think he came back too quick.
Yeah, agreed. But I think that for him to have been able to get back in the car that quick after breaking both wrists, that's pretty serious, man. Because if I broke both wrists, I wouldn't be back in that car anytime quick.
Well, that was kind of my point, right? He probably needed to take some time so that he doesn't, so that he heals properly, right?
Right. But that's
when he didn't compete because of where he's at, because of what had happened over the weekend.
Yeah,
they weren't allowed to put in a replacement, right?
Correct.
So now you've hurt Aston Martin again.
Yes.
Okay. Everybody's wondering what's going to happen with you. You come back for this race, clearly still not ready.
Yeah.
He qualifies 17th.
Right.
Right. And then he finishes 17th. And the only reason he finished 17th is because three people DNF'd.
Yeah.
He'd have finished 20th if everybody was on the track.
Yeah, and the car has not been absolutely horrible. I mean,
Fernando was in the points the last two races.
The past two races. So, yeah, it's
and wasn't he like fifth on the grid in qualifying?
I don't know. Yeah, I think so. And that's the other part.
He has more Q1 exits than almost anybody on the grid.
I would love to know the true drama that's happening in the Aston Martin garage, because there's also rumors going around about Stroll not having his injury flare up is him creating a new injury by hurting himself and throwing his helmet and some other stuff in the garage after he got out Q1 or Q3. So,
I mean, here's the thing: is I was kind of hoping, as an Aston Martin fan, I was kind of hoping that this was kind of his graceful exit out of F1.
Same.
And that they were going to be like, oh, his wrists
medically
are just
retire him,
and you know what, it still might be, because his performance in his home race in front of his home fans was something that you've got to be like, okay, as you guys can see, his wrist is still not 100%. We're gonna sub in somebody. We're gonna sub in Valtteri Bottas for the rest of the year.
The big fear is that when Lance Stroll does hang it up, is that Lawrence Stroll packs up all his money and says, all right, y'all have fun, I'm selling the team. And then Aston Martin goes in another lull where we don't hear, anything great from that team for the next 5 years. Right.
No. And that's a huge fear, because to be, to tell the truth, I'm not a Stroll fan. I've never been a Stroll fan. And I have serious issue with, a lot of the things that have happened to transpired to this point, including the fact that he did an interview where he was saying that he thinks it's ridiculous that people, that the super license is in place so that people can't buy their way through the lower classes. Right. And I was like, I can't even talk to you right now.
Yeah, this
right.
Guy,
so,
oh my gosh, man.
So here's the thing. I respect Lawrence Stroll immensely because it's his vision and obviously his money and his business savvy that put Aston Martin on the Racing Point team.
Yes.
That has literally changed the trajectory of Aston Martin as a car brand.
Totally.
We're seeing the Valkyrie, the Victor, the Valor. I mean, all these killer cars, the Vanquish, right?
Yes.
The Vanquish,
Vanquish.
Built their own dang, they built their own engine for that car.
Yes.
They built a V12 that's not an AMG engine. Yeah. And oh, by the way, I ended up talking to somebody from, that has some insights into Aston Martin.
Right.
And I was like, out of all the cars that you could have put the new Apple CarPlay system in, why on earth was it Aston Martin?
Yeah.
And you know what the answer was?
Lawrence Stroll.
Because they built that they built that back end all themselves. Yeah. That's all
Aston
theirs.
Martin did it.
Yes. So their new radio that's in the car is all theirs.
Okay.
And in order to build,
there's no mix and match off of other brands like it used to be.
It's not. It's not. That's cool. It's not
Volvo
1 year old Mercedes Tech or whatever it is, right?
Yeah, that's cool.
Here's the cool part: they hired a bunch of Apple people that were doing UI stuff, right?
Yeah,
they hired a bunch of those guys and brought them over to help design this. So it's basically plug and play for them. It's the easiest system for them to integrate this new software into, right? Because they had a large part in building it.
I'm interested to see how that's going to change, like the DBS or the whatever's going to take the place of the DB12. That's going to be interesting to me.
I mean that system's in the DB12 right now, the DBS, the DBX.
So you think there's going to be a software update for all those that are like OTA?
There is.
There is. Oh, awesome.
Yeah. So it's coming in like the next month or two.
Sweet.
But even the Vanquish and the Vantage, right? They all have that new UI in there. And they're all going to get this update. Awesome. And what's really cool about it is now you can ask Apple, we're not going to say that because we don't want it to trigger everybody's home devices, but you can ask Apple to turn down the AC in your car.
Yeah.
You can ask Apple to make it warmer, to turn your heated seats on, right? Before you couldn't do any of that. You'd have to go into the car's UI and mess around in there.
You have to push a button.
Yeah. Well, they're going to, what's cool is they're integrating all this stuff together.
Yeah.
So they're going to be able to have, the Apple UI in the driver's screen, right?
Right.
But I say all that because without Lawrence Stroll, we Aston Martin fans wouldn't be where we are. We wouldn't have a green car on the track.
Yeah.
We wouldn't have a brand new multi-billion-dollar facility in Silverstone.
Correct.
Right. We wouldn't have all these amazing new cars that seem to be coming out like just gangbusters, because you had all these cars that were coming out successfully one after another. Aston Martin is back in Le Mans with a LMP car.
Yes.
Right. They're racing the Valkyrie in Le Mans. Well, I mean, it's unbelievable.
Max's team is using Aston Martins.
They are. They're using Hans, whatever his name is.
Franz. I can never get it right.
He's using Aston Martin. What are they?
Is it the Valhalla?
I think he's got the Valkyrie in one of them, and then he's got the Vantage in another one. Like the one he's been testing has been the Vantage.
Right? Regardless, cool, man,
dude. It's super cool. It's super cool. Yeah. And I will say, if it wasn't for Lawrence, we wouldn't see that. So to your point, if he decides to pull out and leave the sport,
that's going to be
he could leave Aston in a lurch, and I'd hate to see that. But at the same time, I don't know that Lance Stroll's good for the sport.
It's a double-edged sword, man. It's a double-edged sword. If we're going to get Lawrence Stroll, we may have to deal with little Lance Stroll.
I still think that one of the rules they should make in F1 is you can't be related to the people that own the team, right? Like when they did with the Haas car, and they had the guy from Russia, I can't think of his name.
You're talking about what is his name? Man.
But when they had him in the car, his dad was the one that was funding, the team, right? And he was trying to make all these calls about it and try to do all. And I was like, no, you shouldn't be able to have a say so in it because because your son's on the team,
Yeah, it's interesting, man, to say the least.
It is. So that was my rant for the night, right? Is that I'm in that position right now where I really want to see 2026. Now, obviously, we're not even halfway through 25, so there's a lot of racing left to go.
Absolutely.
But we all have an eye toward 2026 because there's so many changes coming.
Correct.
Cadillac's coming in the sport. Audi's coming in the sport. We might see some return of some racers that we loved. Right. Yes. There's rumors that people are coming back. Adrian Newey is with Aston Martin. Honda's moved to Aston Martin. Ford is now building the engines that are going into the Red Bull team.
Yep.
So there's so many huge changes, and the cars are going to fundamentally change from the ground up.
Absolutely.
They're going to be smaller and, narrower. And so it's just going to be a complete redesign of everything we know from Formula One. And you've got all the right pieces. You've got a top tier facility. You've got a 2-time championship winning driver who apparently still has the chops to do it. He's still got it.
Yeah,
right.
Fernando Alonso.
You've got the winningest car designer in F1 history, and you have one of the winningest engines in F1 history.
Not to mention they have a plethora of other people that have came to the team from every other team, like Mercedes, from their and big days and all that.
Yes,
and
I'm sorry I haven't done those people justice because there's a ton of people behind the scenes, who are not as well known as Adrian Newey, right, who are killing it in the background. And you're going to take all of this and hand it to a guy who has had more, Q1 exits than anybody else on the grid. And oh, by the way, you're going to hand it to somebody who has wrecked more people than I care to count. I mean, unbelievable.
I will say that he has been voted, and this is not my opinion. This is just in general. He has been voted the worst driver in Formula One.
I don't disagree.
And I don't disagree either.
I don't disagree.
I just, at the same time though, I don't want Daddy Stroll to leave us. So, I don't know, man. Let Alonso get another world victory and let's go.
Yeah, I'm hoping that as a businessman, he basically looks at this and says, look, I think that this is a good business for me to be in, and I'm going to stay in this business for a little bit. There's so many rumors floating around about Max leaving the team and coming to Aston. And I'm telling you right now, I struggle with Max because I think he does tend to lose focus when he gets challenged, meaning that he's an amazing driver. He is a fast driver, but if he's in the mix, he will outbrake somebody intentionally running them off the road just so that he doesn't get beat. Right. He's one of those people that doesn't want to get beat under any circumstance, right? And to be fair, that's what winners are about, right? Winners want to win under any cost,
Absolutely.
But the difference is we're used to F1 being kind of the gentleman's sport, and we're not used to seeing that level of aggression when driving. I think that's what's always kind of been the one knock I've had against Max.
Right.
But you can't take anything away from the dude. He's a killer driver. But the fact that he's been testing so much in the Vantage in GT3, and the fact that he has been kind of looking at other areas, I almost wonder if he's on his way out from Red Bull.
I mean, the dude eats, sleeps, and breathes racing, though. And I think that's one of the things that I truly respect, because not a lot of drivers are like that. Lando golfs and stuff like that. Max doesn't do that. Max is like, if he's not racing, he's racing. You know what I mean?
No,
he missed the F1 premiere recently. Just to go and test the car, and he said he wanted to be with family. which his family's racing, obviously. So
everybody went to go see the F1 premiere, which I can't wait to see that premiere.
I'm so excited about that movie, man.
John and Jessica need to come up to Atlanta. We're all going to go see it together as a group. Dude, we're going to get the Apex helmets, and we're going to eat popcorn out of it. We're going to watch the movie in IMAX.
Yes.
Yeah, it's going to be legit. But I am super pumped to watch that movie. And to be fair, I haven't seen a movie be this hyped up in a long time.
It's hyped.
And they are hyping the crap out of this movie.
I'm excited about it.
So I'm praying that it's great. But it looks like it's going to be amazing. With that said, everybody went to the premiere, and Max was very clearly not there. And then all of a sudden you see Franz Hermann is testing again. I'm like, wow, there we go.
There it is, man.
Yeah.
Where are you at, Spa? I'll be back. Don't worry.
But I mean,
love it, man.
Honestly, he'll be up at 3 o'clock in the morning before a race on a sim,
winning the 24-hour iRacing game. Like,
yes,
that's the kind of guy he is, man. And that's what I like about him. Obviously, I'm a Max fan. You're a Lando fan. So I would say I'm a little bit. I think he's the most
I like Piastri a lot. I like Piastri because he's so deadpan.
Oh yeah,
and
monotone.
he's just like
monotone.
Yeah.
He probably looked in his mirror and he's like, oh no, is Lando okay? And in his mind he's thinking, but I'm winning right now, and my only competitor just wrecked out.
Yeah. No, I am definitely an Aston Martin fan and a McLaren fan. And to be honest with you, there's a lot of people on the grid that I pull for just because I want to see them do well. I want to see Hamilton do well. He's a generational talent, and probably, one that we'll never see to that level again, where he's won in so many different cars.
Absolutely.
But I want to see Hülkenberg on the podium.
Oh, come on, man. Yes.
Desperately.
Let's go, dude.
Desperately.
I want to see him
I want to see Albon do well.
And this is my thing. I came into Formula One when Alonso returned to the sport with McLaren.
Mm-hmm.
So at that time, I was a big McLaren fan. But I owned an Aston Martin, and I drank a lot of Red Bull. Aston Martin Red Bull Racing was my team. And so then when Max came to the sport, because it was like right about that same time, Max came to the sport, and I'm like, this young dude's going to kill it. And I like Danny Rick. I thought Danny Rick, man, he's got the smile, he's got the charm, this dude's cool. And then he's going to be the number one driver, and they're going to be a really competitive team. So that's when I moved to Aston Martin Red Bull Racing, and really loved it in that era of racing. I really love that, and then the two Astons wrecking into each other. And then at that time, that's when, that's right about the time when, Drive to Survive came big, and all my friends started watching it. I'm like, dude, me and my wife are like all into Formula One, and then all our friends are like, hey, did you see the race? Are you me? Yeah, I saw it. Did you?
Now everybody's into Formula One, so it's pretty crazy, and we're seeing more and more influencers get invited to do Formula One stuff. So just saying, there's some people right here that would love to do it. But listen,
love to do it.
I hope you guys have enjoyed this episode. I know we've gone on for a while, but there's some things we're pretty passionate about.
Absolutely.
Congrats to Chevrolet for another, just
car.
Epic breaking car.
It's gonna be awesome.
Congrats to Toyota for coming out and saying, look, electric isn't actually, what you thought it was. It's dirtier than 3 hybrids combined, right?
Yeah. And having the data to back it up. That's the other part.
Yes.
They didn't just say it; they showed it.
No,
that was crazy.
I'd hate to say this, but my fail of the weekend is team orders from McLaren. I think there should have been some sort of team orders from McLaren that should have either said,
it out, man.
I do too, but again, bigger picture, right? So you can't tell me last year that you got on the radio to Lando and said, hey, we're going to sacrifice your driver's championship and give the position back to Piastri because it's the right thing to do for the championship, and then basically hang him out to dry here, So I think at the very least they should have said, listen, be smart.
Be be careful.
You're free to race, but be smart.
Yeah.
And then it would have been on Lando. I mean, it's still on Lando now.
It's on Lando.
But the fact that that McLaren didn't come in at some point and be like, look, Lando's clicking off. He's 0.5 a lap faster than you. You need to give him some room to go get Kimi.
Yeah.
But with that being said, Kimmy got his first podium, and I was super happy about it. So yeah, let's go, Kimmy.
Yes, man.
But anyway, for those of you who lasted this long in this episode, we appreciate it. We love everybody that's been subscribing to our channel lately. We are so close to hitting 1,000. You know, so I know that for you OGs that have been out there, we appreciate it. We have selected a winner for the silhouette, the BMW silhouette. We'll be reaching out to that person soon.
The M4 GTS silhouette, baby. Let's go.
Yep. So we'll be reaching out to that person soon. And I mean, that's all I got, man. That's it. That's the end of this episode. So
peace.
Peace. We out.